All right, here we go. All right, hello everybody. My name is Jason Fraser. I'm a meteorologist with the NBC affiliate in Cleveland, Ohio. And I wanted to thank you for joining us for When Weather Becomes the Breaking Story. We have quite with us and today, and I'm really excited about this panel discussion. So panelists, please forgive me. I'm going to have to limit your responses to 1.5 minutes. That's just so that we can get to everybody, but I'm hoping that everyone at least walks away with at least one thing from this panel discussion. So let's get started with introductions first. And Romney, I'll start off with you. Ladies first.
Thanks. My name is Romney Smith. I've been a journalist for a little over 10 years. I've mostly worked in the Deep South in Georgia and Florida, and now I'm in Ohio. For transparency's sake, I am married to Jason, just so you know. But I've been a reporter and a journalist and an anchor, but I have reported on the side of weather, as in hurricanes, tornadoes, and then for the first time ever in my life, snow, since I moved to Ohio. So I know more of the reporting side on what to do before the weather event, during the weather event, and then after from a reporter's standpoint.
Ben?
Hey, I'm Ben Hart. I'm the news director at WISN, it's the ABC affiliate in Milwaukee. I've been around a lot of weather phenomenon. I've been in Mississippi. I've been in Sacramento, New Orleans, here in Milwaukee, all with Hearst. So I've been around the block with one company. Weather obviously is one of the big things in every single market, all different weather for me. I've been able to understand how every single place has its own top story, wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, a polar vortex, the snow that you only get here as high as you get up in Milwaukee. But my biggest weather phenomenon, I think, was in Hurricane Katrina when I was down in Mississippi and New Orleans. And I'm excited to get a chance to talk about this today.
All right, Ricky?
Hi everyone, my name is Ricky Irving. I'm a producer at the Weather Channel. I've been here about 4 years. Before coming to the Weather Channel, I didn't know much about weather, but now, since being here, I've learned a lot from all the meteorologists here. I field produce, so I'm out in the field in the weather when the story happened, hurricane, aftermath, snowstorms. So snowstorms are actually my favorite because they're less impactful.
All right, Vitas?
My name is Vitas Reed. I'm chief meteorologist in Baltimore at Fox 45. I've been at this Fox station for about, in Baltimore, 18 years. I was here at corporate Sinclair headquarters for about 4 years, running a new central operation they had there. Then I just trickled on down to the Baltimore station, and I've been there ever since. So really altogether 18 years. I hate saying 18 years, in one place. I guess that's a good thing.
The blessing.
But nonetheless, it's a blessing. So been chief out here and enjoying the East Coast. I'm Midwest born from Michigan. So I know the Midwest well from Michigan and worked over in Indiana before this. So I have a lot of experience with East Coast weather, Midwest weather, and I just love being a meteorologist and love what I do. And I'm happy to be here and a part of this wonderful team talking about the importance of weather.
Excellent. And Nikandra, hello.
Hi, I can finally hear you. I couldn't hear you until 2 seconds ago.
That's okay. That's all right. We're just going through introductions.
All right. I think I'm all in. Hi. Let's make sure that looks decent. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Glad I made it.
Hello.
Hi.
So we're just
go ahead and introduce yourself?
we're just introducing the panel. We're recording, by the way.
I see that. Hi, I'm Nikandra Norwood, and I'm a meteorologist in New Orleans. I've been here, since 2007 now. This is my home area, and really happy that I'm getting a chance to be a part of this panel. Thanks.
Gotcha. And for transparency's sake, the reason why Nikandra, she was having a few Wi-Fi issues, but we're happy that it all worked out, and we're looking good, and we're sounding good. Also, for transparency reasons, if you see the name Denise at the bottom of your screen there, that's my colleague at the station, and she is assisting us with the technical side of this. So thank you very much to her and my station. So the first question that I have for all of you panelists is, what is the weather event that had the largest impact on your career and why? And what did you learn? And you know what? Nikandra, why don't you go first?
Since I'm just sitting up here, actually the weather events that have had the biggest biggest effect on my career were things that happened to me growing up that really led me to become a meteorologist. Hurricane Andrew was the first hurricane that we ever actually evacuated for, and you really had to wonder about what was going to happen when you came home. And then even back, Hurricane Gilbert in 1988 was one of those storms at the time and had the lowest pressure. That's now been beat by a couple of storms, Katrina and Rita, not to be left out. But those were two that really led me to want to know more about why these things happen and really express how they affect people. So I'd say those really were the biggest weather impacts on my career.
It is?
Well, there's probably a few of them, but one of the biggest probably I would say was when we had Hurricane Isabel that came up the coast, and really I got to see for the first time, being that I worked in the Midwest before, that I dealt with more like tornadoes, those type of storms, straight line winds, but the East Coast, how it was dealing with a hurricane, basically the amount of flooding that we had in the Chesapeake Bay, and then also within the Inner Harbor, around Baltimore, the DC Metro, all of that really played a big role in how I really viewed some of these storms, the impact of how that flooding can take place. There was also some big snowstorms that shut down everything out here, that as well. But I would say that Isabel was quite an interesting forecasting for a tropical situation, basically tropical storm or hurricane. I hadn't done that as much being from the Midwest, but having that hands-on, that was when I first moved here. That was kind of interesting. So that played a pretty big impact on my weather forecasting skills out here in the East Coast.
Ricky, you're over at the Weather Channel. I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot. What's been the biggest impact story of your career and why?
I'm gonna be Hurricane Harvey. I had just started at the Weather Channel that year, so I was freshly new here. But Hurricane Harvey hit my hometown, Houston. So covering a storm that's hitting my hometown while being here. At that time, I was in the control room, producer. So just seeing all of the damage and everything that's happening to the city that I grew up in. And Houston's not new to hurricanes. I grew up in hurricanes, but just being on the other side of it, like, it was definitely something that left a mark on my career. And also being able to see, seeing the damage and also knowing the damage that is done to like my family also. That was the other part.
And what would you say you learned from Harvey?
Being there, being in a control room, that on that side, that we have to show the stories for me of our people in Houston, because that was something that everyone haven't dealt with. Like 60 inches of, I think, rain fell from that storm. So that was something.
It was a lot of water.
Yeah, it was a lot of water.
Ben, what would you say was the biggest impact to your career as far as the weather is concerned, and why?
Like I said earlier, it's Hurricane Katrina. 15 years ago, I was a producer. An opportunity then. It was special because we have in my company, we had a New Orleans affiliate there and WDSU, and then we had, where I was working at the time was a WAPT in Jackson, Mississippi, and Hurricane Katrina happened and everyone from New Orleans evacuated. So they evacuated north and east to do two different stations of ours in WESH and WAPT, but most of them came to WAPT, and we watched that storm go from being a Florida event to being a Gulf event, and then it ended up coming directly up the gut there. So it hit New Orleans, well, it hit Mississippi. And then, all of the things that happened with the levees and things happened to New Orleans. And then it kept going directly into Jackson. So I saw the scope of what a hurricane could do. As a producer, as a news producer, it was so important to me in my career to understand what we're here for. People were waiting for information from the beginning of that storm well into 4 or 5 weeks after that storm about how they could get on with their lives. I remember after that storm, I moved to New Orleans not very long after. I mean, the lights were still out, the floods were still in the streets, and there were things like tornadoes that came along after Katrina, which meant all of the destruction was still on the ground. All of the things were still out there incomplete, and people were now dealing with another weather phenomenon. And you know, the idea of how important we are to making sure that people have some sort of a warning is what really struck me. It's what struck me about weather, but really about everything we do as news professionals. It's important that we are in front of as much as we can be in front of, and give people as much of a warning or an understanding as they could possibly have.
Romney?
For me, I would clearly say it was Hurricane Irma. I was a reporter in Jacksonville, Florida, and an anchor, and I was literally anchoring 8 hours in the morning and then field reporting and anchoring for 8 hours, and then I get 8 hours off. And so as a reporter, to know, and our bosses had prepared us very well. We had all the equipment and snacks and tools we needed, but just to know that I was going to be by the beach, seeing 20-foot waves. I mean, it was absolutely insane. So for me, I learned what to pack, how to report, how to get information out during a time when the whole city was basically shutting down for Hurricane Irma. And the most important thing as a reporter at that time, when I was in the field, well, when I was on the anchor desk, it was to remain calm and get out as much information as possible. As a reporter, the most important thing was to make sure I was constantly reading the emails to make sure that I was using the right language that the meteorologists were using, because of course I am not a weather expert. So to make sure I was using the right language that the chief and the weather team was using, and then also to have power backups for absolutely every piece of equipment, because there was one day where I was in the field for about 12 hours straight because I got caught over a bridge because the wind gusts were sustained and so high that we couldn't come back to the main area. So you really had to prepare yourself to just be in the elements for a long time. It was devastating. So I think both before the storm, during, and after, it was just, as a reporter, you always think news is the most important thing. And then you realize that at any point in time, weather can just impact way more people in your DMA and become the top story because it affects everybody.
So, Romney, I'm glad that you brought up your points about batteries and whatnot, because the next question is really about what do you wish that someone would have told you before Hurricane Wilma? What do you wish that somebody would have said, hey, you need to do this, or maybe you need to think about this before, obviously looking at it, you know, in hindsight now?
I think for Irma, you know, everyone buys bread and
Oops,
milk.
what did I say? Wilma? Oops,
I said
I'm
Wilma.
sorry, I meant Irma.
Yeah, everyone buys bread and milk, and I never understand why, unless you're having a French toast party. That doesn't really make sense to me. So for me, I went out to the store and got some chicken, got some pasta, lots of pasta, because I figured my power was going to go out, and it did. And so I made a whole bunch of pasta, and I had a whole bunch of fruit to eat good, solid food, because there are people, typically our younger reporters, were just eating snacks. That's not going to get you through, especially when you're caught. Battery backups for absolutely everything. For your cell phone, make sure all the cords you need have double in case something gets wet. Trash bags, not only for your equipment, but for your clothes. Have backup socks. Dry socks are so important. Jason is my husband, so he knows. I've got at least 50 pair of socks at home. Rotating your socks is very uncomfortable to work if you're soaking wet at all times. So not just the equipment, but also the power for the equipment, food for your body, backup clothes. I mean, you really have to come with several bags of gear to make sure you're prepared on all fronts, to assume the worst case scenario, to assume that your equipment's going to die, your equipment's going to get wet, and that you're going to get wet, and that can you still do your job in that situation.
Ricky, what do you wish somebody would have told you before Harvey?
That we're going to be working 12 on, 12 off. But yeah, that was my, like I said, first time covering a storm in that magnitude. And so we worked 12 on, 12 off. And being in this control room than being out in the field are totally two different things when it comes to working. But getting the information right is definitely the most important, I think. Being in the studio for sure as a producer, that's something that we had to always make sure and always ask questions to meteorologists. I'm not a meteorologist, but we have tons of meteorologists in the building. So that's the good part about it. And if you even question it, have something, ask our meteorologists because they would know. And so that's something I learned for sure is keep our meteorologists on hand.
Ben, you talked a lot about Katrina. What do you wish that someone would have told you beforehand?
I learned everything I know about weather. I think I learned that week. It was a week and a half of nonstop television. Um, so understand the same thing Ricky just said, understanding that you're going to be going and going. I think I told you guys, we were the landing spot for an entire newsroom of people who came there. And obviously they were also a part of our coverage, but they weren't really in a place to cover. They were kind of out of sorts. They were looking at video and pictures of their own homes. So the people who had an opportunity to be like me and Ricky inside and not in the elements have to understand that our hours are going to need to be really long, because we're helping to connect the dots between people who are looking for a safe place to be. You have to be really cognizant of where everyone is. I think that the things I learned as a manager, as a producer, but then as a manager, is redundant communication. Back then we had the little chirp. I don't know, you guys are, some of you too young, but the
Blackberries.
the bells, or what do you call it?
Yeah.
The chirps. That was a radio signal, was so much more important at that moment than any cell tower, because all the cell towers were down in Hurricane Katrina. I moved on to Gustav. They called me back. I was in California when Gustav came back, and I was an expert in the company. So they said, hey, can you come help put on one of these 12 on, 12 off shifts for the producers? And that's what I did when I came back for Gustav. And then being still not in the field, but actually in the building where the hurricane was, understanding plans and having simple plans that also are redundant. So you have a plan and a backup plan, but that they're very simple. Like, you don't have a really elaborate plan of what you're going to do, but a really simple plan of what you're trying to accomplish, and give everybody one simple responsibility that they can handle. And if it's gone, then somebody with another simple responsibility can take on the extra thing. Instead of giving people really elaborate things they're going to be responsible for, really shutting down all the complications is an important thing that I learned from Hurricane Katrina and to Gustav, every other Harvey, all the things that I've helped to covered in a way. And you got to prepare for not having anything. I think that as a producer going into this, and as a weather assistant, I guess is the way you could put us, we have to understand you may lose all sky cameras. You may lose, some sort of the WSI may have some sort of a glitch, or something may happen with radar, because all of these things are moving and connected to hardwired, hardware. Anything can go. So you have to be prepared to be able to go on the fly with whatever you do have. And that's one of the things that 15 years ago, we came up with WIPs. We could not get a satellite signal up. We couldn't get a microwave signal up. And we started to get people to just record where you are and run that tape. Again, I'm going back in time. Run that tape back here and hand it to me, so that I can immediately, as soon as you walk in the door, have some more content, because there's nothing new coming in, and we're staying on.
Yeah. What is this thing called, tape? What is that?
Exactly. But it was a time when, all the things we're talking about, that right now you could send in something from your cell phone and all that. None of that was happening. And we were going, and we needed to tell people what was available to them, where they could go, where they could evacuate. The contraflow plan was not working very well. There were people stuck on highways in the midst of a storm. All that had to be told, and we had to figure out ways to do it right now. And so the one thing I learned is that there's just no substitute for going with what you have.
So, Venus, you've covered a lot of winter storms. I know we've been talking a lot about hurricanes, but you've covered a lot of winter storms in Baltimore. So, can you tell me a time about, that you had either a big snowstorm or maybe an ice storm that, hit your area? And what do you wish that someone would have told you beforehand?
To take the job in Miami. That would have been the first one. But no, actually, it's quite interesting, because this area is so densely packed. We got the DC, Baltimore metro area. And Baltimore, if you've not been in this area, is a very packed city, and a lot of small roads, and has a lot of old part of the city where neighborhoods, there's a lot of street parking. And when you get these big storms that move up the coast, one of the things that I've learned about it is that people want to know the reality. So we had big storm that was back to back in 2003. We had another one that was back in 2009. We had those double storms in the February and then also in December where they're back to back storms, and they dropped anywhere from 26 to 34 inches of snow. So that is a lot of snowfall to come down in an area for this many people. So you're talking about between the DC, Baltimore area, about roughly almost 10 million people. So the issue with that is that I learned a lesson, I think, and this is when I really went out and changed part of my forecasting. I'll make this brief. One of the things I did is I would remember going to the gym before the storm came, almost a week before, and I'm tracking the storm. I have a feeling something's coming. And I remember it was noon, so the noon shows were on, and some of the other stations were on in the gym. And I got on the treadmill, I'm watching. I heard a lady get on next to me, and she says, "Oh gosh, you heard about the storms coming," and they just keep saying, "Oh, as it gets closer, we don't know right now, and then we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you up to date." We all hear this all the time. As it gets closer, things can change. We'll let you know, that kind of thing. Until a day or two out, they're giving solid numbers of how much will come down. Well, I took that to my news director. I said, "Look, I'm confident we're going to get blasted with this storm, and it's 5 days out. I'm comfortable giving a number tonight at 10. Like, I'm good. I know it's going to be a foot or more. So are you good with me going out, being first in this market, doing this?" I did it. He said, "Yes, if you're confident with your forecast, do it." So I went out because people want to know. They want to have a gauge. Now, you're kind of risking it. Could you miss it? Could it be on the? No, I knew this was going to be an all snow event. It's coming together. So I went ahead. I was the first one in the market to do it, and I put it out there. I got emails and calls from other meteorologists at the other station. That's irresponsible. What are you doing? You're going out. And actually, people on air said, "I've seen some other stations going out on air, and I find it irresponsible to give numbers." I was like, I don't care. I'm going with what people need to understand. I wasn't way off. I said 12 to 14 inches of snow. Of course, each day it kept ramping up a little more, but it gave people. I got a write-up with the Baltimore Sun saying Baltimore Fox 45 Venus Reed was the most accurate, came out early in this with the warnings, this and that. I learned a lesson from that. Basically, my lesson was, if you feel
I'm going to have to give you the rap. I'm going to have to be the producer and say rap.
I know. So if you're confident about something that you want to go with and it's affecting this many people, you should go with it and feel comfortable. But get that stamp of approval from your news director saying, if they're backing you, I'll go forward. That's what I'd say.
All right, Nikandra?
Well, I'd have to say, I want to ping back to something Ben was saying about not having everything. And it just shows you today, I've been working from home for 3 months and not had a single problem with Wi-Fi. Today, click, nothing. And it still hasn't come back. So you always have to be prepared that you're not going to have all of the things that you think you do or that you think you need. And, in a hurricane, a lot of times in a hurricane, that's pretty easy. But then, we have a lot of other situations. And the ones I think that are even harder to deal with as a hurricane or a winter storm is really when you get these severe weather situations where, it's very isolated. It may be one county or one parish, and you really have to be able to drill into that one area. And when you're losing your eyes as far as maybe your radar or your weather system, you really have to be thinking quick on your feet. What am I going to go with for that backup? And I think, early on, especially, you don't think that's going to happen. And, way back in the bazillion years ago, aging myself, when we had AccuWeather systems that dropped out every other day, that was a real issue. And sometimes it still can be with all the technology that we have. So definitely coming up with those other alternatives. Thank God, cell phones have gotten a whole lot better. We've gone to some times where, hey, pull up the app. If you can't get anything else, sometimes you can get an Apple TV to reflect on our monitor. We've done those kinds of things in situations where you have to be on and you really just don't have access to any of the other tools.
So, Nikandra, weather is often the biggest driver in the local news, especially during a big weather event. For those people who are watching this right now, what are some things that you would tell them that they need to do right now in order to get prepared for the next weather event?
you want to make sure that you are prepared, because you can't, you mentioned it earlier, you can't focus on what you need to get out for the public if you don't know that your family is okay, if you don't know that your house is secure, that you don't have the supplies that you're going to need to keep yourself together. Those are the kinds of things that you really want to make sure that you have ready, so that when it's time for that next event, you don't have to think about it. And, you don't like to think the worst, and it's something that you kind of keep in the back of your mind. But definitely when it comes to covering weather events, I keep my rain boots in my car. I have, my rain gear kit at the station, one in the car, change of clothes. All of that's always ready to go, so that, I don't show up in my cute suit that day and then, well, we got a flood to go cover. I don't have to think about it. It's just right there to ready to go.
Ben, from the behind the scenes perspective, what would you recommend that people do right now to prepare for the next big storm?
That's my dog, just to let you know.
That's okay.
King Kong. But ultimately, I think you have to understand your purpose. I think the biggest thing that I've learned as a journalist is that the job's really easy if you understand what we are doing. We have a purpose. And whether is, you pointed it out at the beginning, the biggest thing that touches everybody. So the purpose of you going on will really dictate the coverage you're going to get. And like I'm going to piggyback off what Nagandra just said. When you know why you're going to cut in, and when you know why this is so important, it becomes really easy to figure out ways to get that information across. So I think that in my heart, what I want to tell everybody is that you won't have all your tools when you really need them every single time. You'll have in your heart the purpose behind it. What Vitas was saying earlier is important. Like, he understood what it was that people needed to know. And so he told them like that. It's really simple when you think about it. You're not worrying about whether you're going to rub somebody the wrong way. When you're going to save lives or perhaps shut down a business that could put lives in danger, all the things that are important really come through you understanding your purpose. So that's what I think I would, recommend that people take away from this.
Romney, I know during the Hurricane Irma, you were very active on social media,
Yeah.
particularly Twitter. Can you talk a little bit about the process of that, and what exactly you were trying to push out, how quickly, and how were you able to vet some of the information that some people were, essentially passing on to you?
Sure. Jacksonville's a pretty Twitter heavy market. And so as a reporter in the field, before the storm even came, I made sure that I was already following various county emergency operation officials, county websites, police departments, fire departments, so that I didn't have to spend time searching for those handles. They were already being followed, and that really helped me out. I was also following everyone at my station. So when it came time to just tweet the information out, I kind of like what Ben said earlier, just know your purpose and be simple. I found that my longest live shots, and I did some that were upwards of 7-8 minutes long, I was literally just calmly explaining what I saw and backing up the meteorologist. I did not try anything new. I didn't try to get fancy. So when it came to my digital strategy, it was pretty much tweet what I see, because I don't need an official to confirm that. I see the waves are at least 10 feet high. I see boarded up buildings. I see boarded up homes. Take a picture, tweet it out. That part I didn't need to confirm with everyone because I was going off of my site. Any information I saw come from a verified Twitter account from, let's say, the Clay County Emergency Operations Center, I felt comfortable retweeting them, because if there was any wrong information, I could then say, well, that came from their official verified Twitter account. So I was simply passing on information. If I got viewer pictures, which we did, and some were crazy. Some were a picture of a shark in a New York subway, and oh, this is horrible. And I'm like, guys, that is not real. First off, we don't even have a subway in Jacksonville. So don't, let's be cautious. So there's common sense to just filter out some. And others, I would say thank you. Always thank them for sending you information, because that means they're trusting your news source for information. I'd thank them for it. And then a lot of times I'd ask a few more questions. Exactly where did this happen? Did you actually take this picture? Because sometimes they'll say, well, my cousin sent it to me. Well, I have a couple more questions. Where was it taken? When was it taken? And then sometimes I'd send it into the team and ask the meteorologist, okay, they're seeing, like for a tornado example, they're seeing this. Did we actually have any reports in this area? And they'd say, no, there was nothing in St. Johns County. It was in Putnam County. And then it's like, okay, And so then you have to just be cautious about what you're getting in. I always felt comfortable retweeting our meteorologist, our station, and any verified public official or emergency operations center. The biggest thing is a tweet lives for an average, well, it used to be 7 minutes. I'm not sure what it is anymore, but you can't get enough. In wall-to-wall situations, whenever I've had a wall-to-wall weather situation, you literally can't pump out enough content. People want to know it. And like they said earlier, redundancy. Where do I go if I have medical issues? Where do I go if I have a dog with me? If I need a homeless shelter, if I need emergency medicine, where do I go? Who do I call? And you just keep pumping it out. And I really didn't have anyone say, you already tweeted that. No one said that because they're like, okay, people need this information. More people are getting on social. So that's kind of how I filtered out what I saw, officials, and then try to verify if possible and ask more questions before just taking people's word for it if it doesn't quite look right.
So, Ricky, obviously, I would imagine at the Weather Channel, you guys are getting pictures from all over the place, from weather gurus, self-appointed weather gurus, to people who are probably part of your actual weather network. How does social media play with you guys, and how do you verify what's happening and what's going on, and how important is that for your coverage?
I think it's very important. It all goes through our social media team and the desk. Before you even get to the producers, it has to be verified through the desk. So it won't come to me and on air, or any producer on air, unless it goes through that. So, and if we see anything online, we have to send it through the desk and social media. So it's not even we can't put anything on air, because there has been times where a picture happened years ago and this actually isn't the storm. This is like a storm years ago and wound up on air. And if I'm in the field, same thing. I say, oh, we can use this picture. I have to send it in, and they have to verify, and they have to see if everything's correct in the picture before putting it on air. Because I said, there's been many times where we've seen things on air that's like, oh, that's not actually Hurricane Harvey, that's Hurricane Wilma.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Vitas, what about you with social media and covering weather events? Do you have any best practices or things that you do in an effort to not only make sure as a meteorologist that you're staying connected to the viewers, but you're also getting out the information as quickly as possible?
Well, yeah, I think that, that's the way of the world now. We know that we're in competition with our phones and apps and everything else. So it's one of those things where we have to stay relevant. And staying relevant is personality and our being involved. So people like to tune in. Like, I do Facebook Lives all the time. But I always highly suggest, don't make your Facebook Lives like you are on TV, just television. Because they can watch you on TV with your graphics and all that. But a lot of times, people are more interested, like they'll say, oh, what's that mirror behind it? Oh, I got that mirror too. But I mean, they're listening to stuff, but they're nosy. People are nosy. They want to see what's going on behind your house. Do you got socks on or you don't? Like, you wearing shorts or not? But you got shorts on? I'm wearing shorts. Anyway, so there you go.
So true.
There you go. So the funny thing is, people want to see your personality, and that's how we win. They trust you, number one. They're inviting you in their house for you to be in there as their guest. So if you're comfortable with them, then on social media, they're going to watch you as well. So for Facebook Lives, I do those every day. And I think that's when I'm really interacting, especially with people. I answer their questions. Same people, some of them keep coming in. And that's when I get huge numbers. So if I do a Facebook Live, like the other day, we were talking about the tropical storm coming. Well, I'll get, you'll get usually over 30,000, views of that. Now, if I just post a picture of a storm and that's a satellite image, I still get, 7,000, 10,000 views on that, and it's shares and things like that. But the personal interaction is most important. So I highly recommend that everyone who's out there want to do social media, do that. Now, of course, when I post something, it's tied in with my Twitter account. Some people do Instagram. I don't do Instagram updates. I mean, I might look into doing that. But also, I think there's a part of sanity. I try to keep, I have an outside life too that I try to do. But James Spann, if anybody knows him, Follow James Spann. He's on every type of social media you can think of. I think he still has a MySpace account. So, I mean, you guys,
So, you
he's
know,
on everything.
it's interesting, Venus, that you bring up James Spann, because I think James Spann is, I mean, he's the level that every meteorologist aspires to get to.
Yes.
James Spann, for everybody that doesn't know, he's the chief meteorologist down in, is it Birmingham?
Birmingham.
Birmingham,
Birmingham.
The ABC affiliate down in Birmingham. And I will tell you, this man responds to messages literally within an hour.
If you see a letter come to you and it says Pony Express, it's from him. He's on everything.
And James will tell you he has no life. So his social media is his life. But you know what, Venus, I'm glad that you brought up social, because that's my next question about the future. How do you see weather forecasting and weather storytelling changing in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
To me?
Yes, Venus. Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, I do see it changing. I think that we have to embrace it, because if you don't embrace it, that means that means you still have a pager and it goes dee-dee, and you go out and find a payphone to make a call and keep in quarters. Well, no, we have to move forward. So as technology advances, so do we. But to stay relevant, I think that, most companies are pushing multi-platform. Sinclair, who I work for, they are pushing multi-platform. They want to see on all levels types of interaction. And we have to make sure we partake in that and get creative with it too. I think that we don't have to do the same old thing, but be different. But I say bring your personality, because unlike your phone, I can go on my phone and I could just go, okay, click, what's the weather forecast for today in Baltimore? Well, that shows a cloud, a sun, a chance for rain. But in what area? And I want to hear you talk to me. I want you to communicate with me. So this phone won't communicate with you. Okay, Siri might talk, or something might, say something, but it's still not personable. So I think that's how our edge is winning, as far as who we connect with and being involved in our community and all that. So this phone won't go out to schools and talk. Okay, this won't be do a presentation at the church, the local church group. This won't go out and do the backyard barbecue. So that's that connection, your personal connection with these with the people in your market. But nonetheless, as technology goes forward, we have to embrace it. Don't fight it, but learn how to make it your own, because it can be molded into your own personal. From what you do could be different from what I do, from what Ram does, in the contract. We all can do things differently, but still getting the point and message across effectively.
You know what, Venus, I totally agree with you. I definitely think, particularly on social media, I have found that personality-based posts get way more interaction than just the standard, here's your 7-day forecast moving forward. I know one of the other technologies that I've started to see a lot more O&Os embrace is this thing called Wsi Virtual Reality, where you can actually see the graphics pop up. I think that's the official term for it, and they pop out at you and it's all animated. Ben, are you guys starting to embrace that, or is Hearst thinking about maybe, doing some sort of virtual reality, or, what is the future for you guys over at Hearst?
We just use whatever products come from whatever marketplace leaders that we use in our respective places. I can't speak for everybody in Hearst. I'll tell you, some of us are WSI, some of us are Barron, some of, we're all using the things effectively for our markets. There's we got a KOCO, which is in Oklahoma, which they're going to use every tornado tool possible known to man and fly a helicopter in the middle of those storms. I live in a different place, so we're going to use different. They do it every time. They do it all the time. Not in the storm, but they're at a far enough distance. You'll find helicopter video of the storm from far away, which is the type of tool they'll use, which again gives them some sort of a visual that people won't see in other cases. We're looking for social media photos and stuff on Twitter. Well, sometimes we go create that video, but using the things. I think you gotta. While yes, you have to embrace the future. You got to understand the tools we have. I think what happens so often is people overlook what they've already got because they're trying to use something they haven't used yet. and people need to be able, go back to what I was saying earlier, you got to understand your purpose. If there's nothing going on, then you're just making stuff up for a virtual set and all that other stuff so you can show something. but something must be going on, or weather wouldn't be so important to people. And so that's what I think sometimes we get away from. Use those virtual things, but incorporate them into the big event that's happening downtown in your city. Make sure that you're using the basis, the purpose, be specific. And I think what you were saying, Jason, what I thought when you started to talk about this, where's the future going? I think the future is going into on the internet and on your phone, you can get exactly what you want when you want it. So what we have to offer as media representatives is something they don't know they want. And just that, and then move on. Nothing fries me more than watching us do, an hour's worth of coverage of a tornado that's running across the state. And then it kind of wraps up. And then we kind of like, hey, and here's the 12-hour forecast of what's going to happen next. Nobody cares about the 12-hour forecast. They were here for the tornado. They weren't here for your forecast, and it's cut in. People get lost in, I've got all my tools. I got to get to the stuff. You don't have to get to the stuff. You have to understand the stuff and use it when it's necessary. Then you're the best at what you're doing. You can throw yourself out there and be in all different directions, but people don't want it. If they wanted it, they'd already be tuned in. You see what I'm saying? You got to give them, when you cut in, when you bring stuff to people, give them something they don't have access to. Everybody can go to Ricky's website and see everything we've got in all of our markets easily. From any phone in any city, anywhere. We're not dinosaurs. We are accessible in a way we've never been accessible before. So your creativity is what drives you. Your understanding the specifics of what you're going to do is what should drive your use of your tools, because nobody knows how to use your tools. They all have access to your tools. So don't just give them the tools. Give them me being an expert with this thing. You can have a statue that's made by, Ben Hart, or it could be Michelangelo. The Michelangelo statue is going to be way better because he knows what to do with his tools. You know what I'm saying? The Michelangelo, whoever's the best statue.
So, and for those who are listening to this, we've been using terms like WSI and Baron, just so that you know, those are computer programs that meteorologists use for graphics. There's two main ones, WSI as well as Baron. There's a few others out there, so I don't want you to be confused by that. Ricky, I've seen you guys, the official term for it is WSI Max Reality. I've been seeing the Weather Channel use a lot more Max Reality stuff. What's coming down the pipe for you guys? What can you share?
We use immersive mixed reality, IMR, what we call it. And so I work on AIM-HQ when I'm not in the field. And so AIM-HQ uses this every day. I produced a segment today on Tropical Storm Faye, and basically showed the storm, zoomed in, of the storm, satellite with video, like all throughout the whole studio. And our OCM, on-camera meteorologist, walked around the whole studio showing this video, satellite, and live picture. So that's one side of our studio is a big green area, and it's all immersive mixed reality. That's the kind of how our forecasting and storytelling has changed to. Even like tornado, we did a whole tornado, showing what happens when a tornado hits, and we went through every category. And so that was something that that's the Weather Channel has been doing on most shows on the channel. It's just producing it. It takes a lot. So the evening show and the morning show have more producers on it. So that's how it's easier to use on those shows. And they just put that on social media, and people watch that. People love seeing that mixed reality. Like we're inside the storm, basically, kinda.
Yeah, it's something I wish that we had here in Cleveland, because I can tell you right now, it was so cool to be able to see the tornado develop.
Yeah.
If you haven't already seen this, the tornado actually develops, and you have Jim Cantori literally standing there showing what an EF0 versus an EF1 versus an EF2. And at one point, if I remember correctly, I think a car lands right next to him.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, that's a little over the top, but.
So this is done live too. So it's kind of like we have these commercial, our breaks are not long, our blocks aren't long. So you got to do this within this commercial break, during the block, come back. And that was done within 3 blocks, I think, that whole tornado.
Wow. So Romney, from the reporter perspective, how do you see covering weather and storytelling changing?
Two things. One, moving forward, I don't think reporters can afford to be as blissfully ignorant as we have been in the past, because we've always just been able to say, we're not a meteorologist. I don't need to know a cirrus from a cumulus nimbus cloud from anything. All I need to know is if
I'm so impressed that you know that too.
life prompts. I kind of feel like I learned a lot from you, but in the past, I could literally be completely ignorant of weather and only pay attention to say, okay, tornado, there's going to be damage. Let me go cover that, interview some people. When do they expect to get their insurance payment? I think moving forward, as weather becomes a bigger and bigger deal, we're going to have to know some basics. And I think those reporters who take it on themselves to either educate themselves, or leaders who educate their newsrooms on just the bare bones basics so that you can communicate better with the meteorologist. I mean, I can't tell you, as a new reporter, I used to mix up watches and warnings all the time and get myself in trouble. And that was a problem. You know, do not leave your newsroom, especially as a brand new reporter. You need to know the difference, because if you're on doing a live shot, you cannot afford to mix it up, because the viewers are going to get confused, and then the chief has to correct you, and then your whole brand looks bad. You never want to do that. So I think in order to better support our meteorologists, we need to help ourselves out by becoming more educated. The other thing is, I think you're going to start to see some investigative reporting as it relates to weather. Let's take Harvey, for example. In Houston, before that even hit, you saw some excellent investigative reporters saying, let's look at the floodplain maps. Now let's zoom in. Which neighborhoods are going to get hammered because the water has nowhere to go? And then that became a heads up for the newsroom of, you need to send crews there because the water has nowhere to go, and it's all going to this particular zip code in this particular neighborhood. And we can tell because it's already there. That information was available 24/7 way before the storm even hit. And so I think there are things that reporters don't realize we can proactively do before a hurricane, before a tornado, before snow, and look at certain systems that are set up within our county governments and say, are we fully prepared for a flood, for a storm, for, you know, in the South, we shut down if it's below 40 degrees because we just can't handle it. So when the North makes fun of the South for that, you know, I always puff up my chest. I'm like, hey, we only have 22 salt trucks. And they say, well, why don't you have more? Because it's cost prohibitive. Why would Atlanta spend $10 million on salt trucks? It doesn't make financial sense. So you just shut the whole city down. It's like, it's a lot easier. And so really doing an economic story or doing a deeper dive on, I know a Puerto Rican investigative journalist, after Maria, they physically went to morgues to count dead bodies because they were like, there's more that's not being reported. So I think you're going to start to see more investigative elements to weather, just to see how prepared the county or the area is. And then afterward, when it comes to damage, to payouts, to insurance, the people are always the focus. But there's a lot more digging that we can do as reporters surrounding weather. So that's a twofold answer. One, becoming more educated on weather to give ourselves a leg up and to help the brand. To investigative reporting as it relates to weather incidents.
Nakandra, how do you see weather forecasting and storytelling changing in the future?
You know, I don't know so much about changing, other than I think we need to do this a whole lot more, that we really actively do this in our shop, where weather and news is very integrated. And I think that a lot of times, you know, there's a disconnect between where the newsroom hears this forecast and they think, oh, that means top story. We got to go with it. We got to sensationalize it. And we really work hard to say, well, no, I want you to hear what I'm saying. Yes, it's important, but like this last incident we've had recently, where we've had flash flooding for one parish, 10 or 15 houses get flooded. Yes, it's a really big deal in that area, but then 85% of our viewers are experiencing a beautiful day. So we really had to work with the news department to balance that, to make sure that we were getting the message out that for someone, there could be an extreme event and you need to pay very close attention. For others, it's going to be fine, but don't think that just because it's fine today, that the whole week is going to be like that, because you could be that area. And if you don't make sure that you have that good communication, what you end up with are these headlines that say massive flooding expected this week. And that's not exactly true. We attend our news meetings. I don't know that everybody does that, but I think that's a really good thing to do. I do split between reporting and meteorology. So several days a week I'm in the news meeting, but even days when we don't have a meteorologist that's scheduled to be a reporter that day, someone will go into a meeting. If we have a big event coming up, we usually go into the meeting and give a brief debriefing. And I think that's really important, just like Robin was saying, about understanding what's going on with the weather and making sure you have that communication. Because if you have that headline that goes into you saying one thing and then you have to come back and correct it, it really looks terrible on air. And unfortunately, you would think that that wouldn't be happening as often as it still does, but it does. So I just think keeping that communication open, making sure that the news managers, producers all understand the forecast and really understand the forecast and are listening to what you're saying, which doesn't always happen. You know, you do the forecast and then you get that call during the commercial break. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What'd you say? So you have to make sure that those gaps are being filled in from your side.
Or Nicandra, I got one for you. And this is what happens when you're married and you are anchoring with your spouse. Oh, you didn't tell me it was going to rain today. I'm sorry. I said it 3 times on it.
Told a million other people.
Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Well, good to know that it also happens in your newsroom too.
Communication, that's it, between all the departments. Yeah. Promotion too, because that can also sometimes get a little sticky.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm glad to hear that you guys do have that communication, that you come to the meeting. I think that that's the thing that most importantly needs to happen across the board. We need to have the meteorologists in the meetings when you're making editorial decisions. Also, I'm not resistant. I know I'm in a weather world here, but I'm a news guy, and we have to have titles. We have to have headlines of what's going on. It's important you're there when they're making the headline and the title, because if you're not, then this is where it goes. It goes into, oh, this is going to be the lead because tornadoes for everybody, and you're not saying that. You need to be in the building. You need to be in the room where it happened.
I agree with that 100%. One of the things that, if I can piggyback on that, is that being in that meeting is so crucial, because not only are you having the conversation with the whole team, whether it be the morning crew or the evening crew, but that you're talking about storms, say there's going to be severe weather 2 days from now. So like if you're saying, hey, we're letting you know there's storms, there's preparation, so you won't get that headline that says, surprise storms rocks the area. And you're like, these weren't a surprise, that we knew about it. I hate that. And that can kind of throw you in a loop as if you guys didn't even know about it. We're all surprised by this freak storm blows trees down. No, we knew about this. So it's very important, that conversation, like the Nicandra was saying, having that communication. And not only that, it goes beyond that. I think that when you meet, you also can, for the entire, well, one of the things we do is we'll send out an entire email. It'll be the story of the day. So it goes out in the morning and the afternoon of what is the story of the day, weather story, and it goes with graphics showing, and we explain the graphics, but not just blanket graphics, but they're saying to the entire staff, from sales to, it just goes to everyone in the building. And so they see the weather story of the day. They understand what's coming, what's going to be happening, so people understand what we have going on. So yes, communication, most important.
All right, so we have approached the end of our Zoom panel meeting regarding weather. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to allow everybody to just speak for 1 minute, just on final thoughts, or things that you're hoping that people who are watching this walk away with. So I'll start off with Nicandra, and we'll make our way around the circle here. Final thoughts.
Well, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to join in this panel. And I think one thing that we didn't touch on as much, we talked a lot about what to do when there's things happening, but sometimes the forecast is a bust. Sometimes the forecast is really good, but the spot where the reporter is just not working out as much. And I think from a reporter or a meteorologist that has to go out in the field, what you really have to learn to do is make sure you're not afraid to tell that producer, there's nothing happening here, do not come to me. Because a lot of times you get that live shot where, well, they said and we talked about, and there's absolutely nothing going on. And I think sometimes that's worse than, just find something else. Find somewhere else to go. Let the weather person talk. Let that meteorologist in studio talk about maybe why it's not happening yet. But, those empty live shots where, well, we're waiting for it, and if it never comes, I think that really hurts you. So that's my last thought that we didn't really touch on too much.
All right. Venus?
One thing I just want to throw out there for whoever's watching, some folks who are questionable about crossing over into weather, they may be already reporters, they may be students. I say pay it forward. Just remember, always pay it forward. What we've done and what we're doing, whether it's behind the scenes, if you're a producer, if you're a news director, or if you are a on-air meteorologist or off-air, we really need to broaden our horizons with people of color in this field, in the scientific field, in the leadership roles in certain companies, from news director to general manager, from general manager to president of the company. We need to really make steps forward to help encourage people to make those moves and support those who are trying to make those moves. And it should be about competition it should be about how can I help you? And so we're all in this together. So I really think that we have to really praise those who are trying to make those strides and assist those and reach out, paying it forward by talking to someone or reaching out, especially in STEM. I notice that a lot when I go to schools. A lot of people are scared of the science and the math. I say, hey, it isn't really that bad. You can get through it. So put your hand around somebody's arm and just say, hey, I'm here to help you out.
And, and Vitas, I'm going to quickly piggyback on that, just so that we did an informal survey of how many Black meteorologists there are nationally. There were about 120, and of those 120, about 18 of them are chief meteorologists. So we need you guys. If you are interested, if you are a reporter and you're thinking about making the transition to meteorology, please let me know, because I was a reporter for 9 years, and I made the switch about 3.5 years ago. So it hasn't been easy, but I will say that, with the help of Vitas and Nikandra, my wife, of course, and a few others, it's been a wonderful transition, and I have not really looked back since. Ben, final thoughts?
I just piggybacking what you guys just said, now I'm hot, they all on me. That's exactly where we are in the world today. Diversity's never been more important. You guys, make me proud when I see you, and it is important that you understand your communities are looking for you to be there, to be trusted. It's an opportunity in the newsroom to be the face of what's most important to the community. I mean, we talked about weather being the lead story. It pretty much is the lead story all the time. There are other stories that are more, breaking sometimes than weather, but that's rare. There's what I mean? Weather breaking sunshine sometimes is a big deal when when the sun hasn't been out in a long time. So understand that weather is news, and that you are important as a group, as meteorologists, people in the weather industry. It's important that you represent who you are there, so that more, as you're talking about, generations to come will be excited and interested in being a part of that part of our industry. I just can't be more excited to, how many did you say there were, Jason? 100
There are about 120. That was an informal survey. So, yeah.
That's a big number compared to 20 years ago. You know what I mean? It's huge. Now we'll have to exponentially grow that number. It's important that we represent everywhere we can, and I encourage that. Remember, be clear, be focused, be purposeful, and that will make you a rock star in any market. People will understand what you're saying, and then they'll love you. If they can't understand you, you got a problem. And I've got a lot of great meteorologists who I've worked with over the years, and sometimes the hardest thing is they're trying to fill 2.5 minutes, and they don't have it. And they're trying to give you a million things that don't matter to you as a viewer, and they're trying to make scientific words speak to me. They don't speak to me. You know what I'm saying? To say something simple, purposeful, explain to me how my life's going to change or not change because of what you have to say about what you're predicting for the next couple of hours to the next few days. And sometimes you need to be really honest and say 7 days away is a long time. These 3 days are the ones that I can tell you specifically what's going to happen in your life. And if you really are purposeful, simple, specific, it's the best thing that you can possibly do.
Well said. Ricky?
One thing I would say is talk to your meteorologist. If you're covering weather, they have a wealth of knowledge. Like I said, I came to the Weather Channel not knowing much about weather or anything. I was in Dallas, so tornadoes were big there. I came to the Weather Channel covering snowstorms, hurricanes, and all types of weather. So having a meteorologist on hand is something that I take advantage of when I'm in the field. Most of the time, always with the meteorologist. And so I don't pick a location, my live location, without talking to my OC. So I was in Houston for Tropical Storm Imelda. I was with Paul Goodlow. The storm was shifting, and so I came to him early in the morning, like, where should we go? Where should we pick the location? I know my orders from my bosses are, oh, have a good location and have it look good, but also show weather in our live shot. And there was one point we didn't have weather, and I was like, oh, we have to move. So that's one thing too, not being scared to move locations, to have a shot. That's my orders from my bosses, because we can't stand and we're showing a hurricane, but it's just sprinkling.
All right, Romney, final thought?
I would say when you're in a weather event, and if you're reporting, first you got to eat a little humble pie and always recognize weather can take over at any point in time. And it really is the biggest story. And so when you're in that moment, sometimes as a reporter, we get so excited and we have so much information we want to just spit out really fast and get really excited and our voices go high. That is not the time. You need to keep it simple, be focused, be clear, explain what you see, and explain why the viewer should care. Give them context. Here's why I'm here. Here's why we're showing you this. Here's what it means to our DMA. I think if you I see so many people try to get fancy, and I want to be active, and I want to show this, and then I'm going to do this, and you're going to pan, zoom, tilt. And we try to get so fancy, and people aren't watching for fancy zooms and tilts and graphics and they are watching for basic information. And so the strongest live shots I've ever done as it pertains to weather is when I am very confident in my 2 or 3 points, and I can stretch that bad boy for minutes, because I'm telling you like a preacher. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to tell you why I just told you that. And if you do that with each point, and you're confident and you're clearly communicating to your viewers so that they understand why you are, where you are, talking about whatever you're talking about, you're golden, and you increase your value and your station's value. The more people trust you as a reporter, they're going to also trust your meteorology team. You always want to defer to them, always, because they are the expert. And so as a reporter, know your stuff. Read the emails from the weather team, know the verbiage, be calm, especially when you've got a 5-minute live shot. It's just be calm, know your stuff, keep it simple, always tie it back to the viewer, and be prepared. If you don't have backups for power cords and solid food, you're going to be in trouble. But have the power backups. Do not eat chips. Trust me, you might not have access to a bathroom. So keep that in mind. And then have fun with it. I know people lose their lives in bad weather situations, but if it's appropriate, there are points of light where you might see a kid flying a kite. Take a moment and show that. It's not all death and destruction. It might not be appropriate to show at the moment, but keep that in your back pocket. There are always positive stories, little points of light that you can tell to have a more balanced approach to your coverage.
All right. Well, Romney, Ricky, Ben, Vitas, Nakandra, thank you so much for your time. My final thought is, and it's been mentioned over and over here, is just know your purpose, know why you're there, and know why the viewer wants you there. So again, my name is meteorologist Jason Fraser. Hopefully you've learned one thing or two, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.